Howdy Brewers. Today we're just doing the side by side of the different cheap beers with the ranging from cheapest to most expensive, but all using the same base extract, being the supermarket lager kit. Remember, the aim of this experiment is to have a Aussie BBQ acceptable beer. So beer 1 was just the base tin and the Brigalows mid-strength brewing sugar, so it was just a 50-50 blend, of 250 grams of dextrose, 250 grams of maltodextrin. Next one, about the kit yeast, the yeast under the lid, 5 grams of whatever the yeast is. Beer 2 is 3470 yeast, but the same fermentables, and beer 3 is 3470 yeast, and instead of the dextrose and maltodextrin, it's 500 grams of light dry malt. They all started at the same gravity at 1033, and they all finished at about 1007. I think, I don't have my notes, but they all measured 3.5% alcohol. So the youngest beer is the full malt one, which is why it's not clear yet, and I didn't want to use any finings, because remember, we're just trying to make the easiest beer acceptable for an Aussie barbecue. So we'll just get on to the tasting. That's the most important thing. As you can see, the two without malt in them, they've pretty much lost their head. The one with malt still has its head. Not much, but it's still there. Alright, let's get on to the tasting. I'm smiling because that tastes like homebrew. Yeah, it has a slight apple tartness to it, which I find is what happens with kit, what I get out of kit yeast. Yeah, so I fermented this at 20 degrees. I temperature controlled it as well. I didn't just let it ramp right up to ambient temperature of 30 degrees here. Yeah, so that one, unless it was another home brewer around for a barbecue, I reckon people might say that there's something odd about that beer. And this is just the 3470. That's the only difference. Tastes like a mainstream beer. Yeah, if you think of Iron Jack or Great Northern, tastes very similar to that. There's a slight breadiness to it, not much malt flavour, tiny bit of sweetness, smooth bitterness, very light on bitterness, very, very acceptable for an Aussie barbecue. And now we'll try the dry malt kit. That's really good. That's like it still tastes like a mainstream beer, but more, we're going into more of the Heineken type beers now, where they just have to me they have a bit nicer flavour profile. So in terms of the experiment, we have our base model, which is the kit yeast, and then base model with some increased octane in the fuel, and it definitely runs better or tastes better. And then we have the actual one that beer that gets serviced, and yeah, so that one had the 3470 and the dry malt extract. I would say it's always, if you just want a minimum acceptable standard for Aussie barbecue, got to swap the kit yeast out to at least 3470, or a US-05 would probably do similar if you don't have temperature control. And if you want to make it even more special, throw some dry malt extract in it. Or you could always make an all grain, but if you don't have time, like I haven't at the moment, these two, good recipe. As I said, this one, yeah, tastes like homebrew. So, yeah, that'll keep your friends' noses turned up when you say, "Oh, try my homebrew." That'll be exactly what they're expecting. The other two, they won't know it's homebrew. All right, that's enough of me. Let me know what you think of it. All right, happy brewing, everyone. Cheers.